Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for being here. In the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of focus on federal issues. And while I agree it's important for us to keep our eye on what's going on, there's a lot of good happening right here in our state. As many of you know, when I came into office, we started Capital for a Day, which is a chance for us to get out and talk directly with Vermonters, particularly in small, rural communities, and hear about what's impacting them, rather than expecting them to come to Montpelier to voice their concerns. This was the case when we spent the day in Windham County last week. I first met with 35 veterans in Brattleboro who get together every Tuesday for coffee to catch up and chat with each other. We also toured Rescue Inc. in Newfane, which has a new state-of-the-art training facility for medical first responders. I then visited Crafton Village Cheese, who recently brought home 5 awards from the American Cheese Society annual competition, including a first place international award for their popular cloth-bound cheddar. And their cheese really is Vermont made, using the milk from cows from the region. Our next stop was Jelly's Deli in Londonderry, where we met with Bev Jelly and her daughter, whose business was flooded in 2023. Bev, who's in her 80s, was determined to reopen the store after flooding forced them to close. She even at her age, and with all she's been dealing with, continues to find ways to help her community, because that's the Vermont way. It's something we desperately need more of these days. At the end of the day, we toured the state park with local town officials in Jamaica, which I had never seen before. A small but beautiful and very well-run state park next to the river, within proximity to Jamaica Village and very important to the economic vitality of the community. It proved to be another hidden jewel we have here in Vermont. So with that, I'll open up to questions. I'm sure we have many questions about Windham County.
They do.
This is the cabinet room.
What is your reason all year?
We get together every single week. You just happen to choose the day that they're here.
Okay.
Windham County's Brattleboro has a terrible drug crisis slash crime. What is the state doing more than we already know about to address that problem?
Yeah, we had a public safety seminar with them, roundtable discussion at Rescue Inc., and they voiced their concerns about what was happening in their communities. And it's interesting, Windham County is a little bit different than some. Maybe Bennington might be similar because they're border to 2 other states. Mm-hmm. And they have this highway called I-91 that comes right up through their county. So they're impacted. They understand they're impacted more than most. I was impressed, of course, with the chief in Brattleboro, and as well as the local officials. There were some who applauded us on our veto of H91. They thought the hotel motel program should shut down, that was what was impacting them directly. And but they had other areas where we offered support, and they talked about what they could do in their community, and some of their concerns about housing, of course, their labor force, and many other issues that affect them, just like every other county in the state. So I think some of what they told us wasn't a surprise, and but again, they appreciated all we were doing to help them in their time of need.
You wrote a letter back to the feds about Vermont not being a sanctuary state. Why did you write that letter, and has there been a response since you sent that letter back?
Well, they asked for a response. They sent a letter pretty much saying that we were a sanctuary state, and we disagreed. and for a number of reasons. So we sent a letter back describing why we thought we were not a sanctuary state, and but we haven't heard anything back from them other than the acknowledgement that they received the letter.
Will this impact Vermont communities that say they are sanctuary cities?
Not as far as I'm concerned. That's separate from the state. And that was, they talked about the communities within the letter, but they had said the state is considered a sanctuary state.
Governor, have you ever received a letter like this before from the DOJ?
Not that I can remember, but we receive a lot of correspondence with the federal government. I'm not sure. I just don't recall one.
Do you think it's fair to say that Vermont has chosen a policy of non-involvement with federal immigration enforcement?
We do not stand in the way of them enforcing, but we don't adhere to some of their strategies either.
What do you mean by some of their strategies?
Well, they might, for instance, pull somebody over and ask about their immigration status. We do not.
Do you fear any kind of repercussions or consequences for there being a disagreement upon whether or not Vermont's a sanctuary state?
Well, they did mention that there could be federal funds that would be withheld, but they didn't say that specifically. They just were making us aware of that. So it's always, I think we all have seen what happens in DC these days, and there's a lot of threats that come out of DC, and mostly about funding and so forth if you don't adhere. So we made our case. We'll see what happens.
State tax revenue shows Burlington retail and restaurants aren't growing economically. What specifically are you doing to help Burlington?
Well, I mean, Burlington's our largest city. Obviously, they have their difficulties at this point. I think if you look down through, the Canadian tariff situation isn't helping the city at all. I think the number of projects we're seeing, city projects, they're not state projects, but with the infrastructure, I think there's 5 or 6 going on in the community right now. That doesn't help. And I would have to say the lack of maybe enforcement of some of what we're seeing in the city is impacting them. So I think it's a combination that isn't a good mix for economic vitality, and so some of that will probably be repaired when the projects are completed, when the tariff situation with Canada is resolved, hopefully in a way that is conducive to Canadians coming back to visit Vermont, and if they put more emphasis on enforcement of some of the laws in regards to drug use, I think that would help.
Well, what specifically are you doing? It's the economic engine, one might say, of the state.
Well, I wouldn't say it's the economic engine. There's a lot of other areas throughout the state, throughout Chittenden County and Franklin County and Lamoille County and Washington County. We haven't been asked to do anything, but if they are in need, we would be happy to assist in any way we possibly can. But again, we are all ears in terms of what their request would be.
Yesterday at a town hall with hundreds of businesses, the mayor, and I quote, said, "I want you to hear that Governor Scott has not been a strong partner in this." Is that true?
I haven't been a partner to what they're doing. We're not partnering with the projects. Those aren't our projects. If they need some help with law enforcement, be happy to talk about that. But it would be under some conditions, like more enforcement.
So she says she's reached out, she's invited you, speaking to the mayor of Burlington, and she said she's had...
I don't recall any of that, but we'll look back and see what correspondence we've received.
When was the last time you walked down Church Street or through City Hall Park?
I'd say it's been a while. Up Church Street? I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been to Burlington a number of times over the last few years, in between floods and pandemics.
But have you walked through City Hall Park, Church Street yourself recently?
I can't say that I've been recently. I think the last time I was at City Hall was when Hamas invaded Israel.
But you haven't walked, and when there was an event, you haven't seen what it currently looks like with what many businesses are saying is open drug use and open crime. You have not seen that
I've
yourself.
heard that, but I haven't seen that myself. Correct.
What's that message to the Vermonters, who's the hundreds of businesses?
I think there's a lot of other Vermonters that are avoiding Burlington as well. I think that's what it says.
Are you saying you're avoiding Burlington?
No, I'm just saying that I haven't visited there. I haven't walked down Barry and through Barry or Montpelier lately either. I haven't been to Rutland City and walked through their downtown. So I don't think it's any different than any other major city we have in the state.
Is she just blaming you? Is she trying to shift blame from her own policies?
I think it's easy to blame others when some of your strategies are failing.
What do you think of, the president just took over DC, law enforcement in DC, or at least with the National Guard? I mean, it's obviously been deemed pretty controversial, but is that a strategy you maybe would want to see in Burlington?
Not without working with the local community.
Do you
I mean,
think
it's the
something
local
like that is
community- it's the local-
necessary?
No, I don't. I don't think the National Guard is appropriate for Burlington. I think they have their struggles, but we're not at that level at this point.
I mean, there was a gentleman that was just beat up by 3 youths. We're hearing similar types of violent crime out of Burlington. Sure, it's a much smaller scale in Washington, D.C., but you don't think that there's some...
No, I think a step-up enforcement is necessary. But I don't think the National Guard is the answer, nor do I for Washington, D.C.
The state's MOU with Customs and Border Protection related to payment for prison bed space in the state prisons expires actually today, I believe. Is there a new deal that's been?
Actually, we found out it doesn't. I've learned a few things about this
I
after we
would like
dug
to know,
in.
like,
No,
yeah.
we thought so as well.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's more in November, maybe November 1st, certainly at the end of September. And it's a little bit, it's like complex but simple. I thought that there were 3 separate agreements. It turns out there are not. And there's one major one. We're working on some of the details of that, but we have a little bit of time towards the middle end of September before we have to reach agreement on that. But we're getting there.
So what's how could I characterize the current discussions with CBP?
I think it's been positive. I think we are getting close to agreeing on a dollar amount in terms of detainees and the daily amount that we would be paid, as well as with healthcare and transportation and so forth. So that's been positive. I mean, they want to be a partner, and it does defray a lot of costs on our Department of Corrections in terms of bed space and so forth. So it helps. It's millions of dollars.
Yeah. So, but it sounds like the goal is to continue having this agreement and allowing immigration
Yes.
authorities to use. The goal is not like what we heard from the senators earlier this year in the State House to cancel it. Or
No, and I think many have come around to the fact that these detainees in particular are better off in Vermont than somewhere else. And so we are working towards an agreement that works for both of us.
Governor, President Trump just announced his intentions this week to eliminate mail-in voting. What are your thoughts on that, and how might Vermont respond?
Well, again, I disagree. I think that mail-in voting has been helpful in a lot of respects. I think it's, to be honest, I think it's brought a little bit more balance to the legislature, having mail-in voting. That's my only opinion, my own opinion. So I disagree that it's unsafe. Could it be better? Could it be made better? Possibly. I don't know how, but I think we've seen a decline in the number of people who vote, especially when you think about town meeting day and so forth. And it's problematic, you know. We need a broader perspective when you see numbers like 13%, 14%, 15% participation without mail-in voting. I think it leads you to believe that, you know, when we get those higher numbers, we have mail-in voting. So I think as long as we can continue to keep the integrity of the mail-in program, mail-in ballot program, I think it's worthwhile and useful.
You said that you think maybe it brought more balance to the legislature, mail-in voting. Do you have any evidence or statistics or anything maybe that you have that thought, or you just?
I just feel as though over the years, I've just seen more participation. There are a lot of people in Vermont that have given up on voting. I'm not going to vote. It doesn't matter anyhow. My vote doesn't count. And I think with making it easier with mail-in ballots, I think we've seen a broader participation amongst all that demographics.
Governor, I wanted to ask the latest on the plans to bring state employees back to the office part-time. Do we have an indication of the timeline of that or when that's happening?
Yeah, we're working on that, and you know, I don't want to get ahead of what we're proposing, but I did that 2 weeks ago, so I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. But I think we're making progress on that. I don't know if Sarah, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Thanks, Governor. So as the governor said, it is something that we are working on in a very kind of methodical and strategic manner. Our goal is to communicate to our workforce as soon as we have information to share, essentially not announcing to the media before we communicate with our workforce because we value them very much.
Other than what I did.
Our focus will be on setting a consistent standard for in-person work across state government. This will still allow, where appropriate, the ability to work remotely for our employees, but there will be more consistent in-office work than we currently are experiencing across state government.
And, you know, with employees sort of come back to the office, do you have any concerns about, you know, travel time for some folks? Some folks might have specific needs, whether that be children. Are you willing to work with those employees to, you know, find some sort of compromise in those cases?
We are aware of the concerns of employees about this move to more consistent in-office work. The time that we're going to take to develop a plan to address and mitigate some of those concerns is very important to us, and so we are going to do that. But I want to be clear, we are going to ask for more in-person presence with the continued flexibilities that we have been able to allow our employees starting before the pandemic to support that work-life balance. But again, we think it's very important as public servants in service to Vermonters that we have a more consistent in-office approach.
And do you know what buildings at this time are going to be utilized as this transition takes shape?
I think we have not made any decisions about buildings, and that's part of the work that we're going to do to operationalize.
And I only ask just because there have been some infrastructure concerns. Are you guys, anything you wanted to share on that?
That's part of the plan that we'll be developing.
Okay.
All right, we'll switch over to the phones now, and then we'll come back to the room if there are any final questions. Tim, Vermont Biz.
Good afternoon, Governor. I'm wondering, when you're calling the balls and strikes from the White House, that you're considering your personal political ramifications for that. November 2026 will come up pretty fast, especially with the SNAP data decision that got a lot of blowback. Do you consider what that could be to you personally?
No.
How about for the legislature? You just talked about bringing more balance to the legislature. There could be blowback for them as well. Is that considered at all?
Well, again, I think it's important during these times to be level-headed, be pragmatic, and to just really look at what is coming out of Washington, what's real, what's rhetoric, and that's when I talk about the balls and strikes. For instance, the reconciliation bill. There were many, obviously, that are opposed to it. There's many poor pieces of that I might be opposed to, but there's some things in there that are beneficial. For instance, the Rural Health Initiative, and that was put in towards the end due to the senator to get the vote of the senator from Alaska, Murkowski. And but we're going to realize about $100 million a year over the next 5 years. We'll have to make application for it. It's going to be a lot of work for us because we haven't received any guidance yet. But when I was in Colorado, Dr. Oz spoke to governors about this initiative, and once we receive the guidance, it'll be a quick turnaround, and everything will have to be decided before the end of the calendar year. So this is a big deal for us. We think we've already started our work on this, making sure that we cover, again, rural health and make investments and not just backfill and spend money, but trying to bend the curve because we know that healthcare is expensive in the state, and we have to do something to curb that. So again, that's one example of probably many where we appreciate what they've done and what's in the bill, and something that could be beneficial to the state.
Well, thank you, Governor.
Tom Davis, Compass Vermont.
No questions today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. Keith Whitcomb, Rutland Herald.
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Back to the room.
Just one follow-up to Secretary Clark's comments before. Do you have any updates about the negotiations with the state, with FEMA, about reimbursements and cost sharing for the Capitol complex recovery?
Doug is on, and he can answer that. I know we've had some meetings with them recently. Things are progressing, not as fast as we'd like, but they're progressing. Doug?
Yes, Governor. Yeah, that's essentially the case. We have 3 requests for information from FEMA right now that we're working through related to the Capitol complex. Requests for information are a normal part of the process. And it honestly means that they're working through the package that we submitted back in June, and they're asking us good questions about it. They're trying to get refined costs. One example is we submitted some costs as a lump sum, and they asked us to break out those costs with a little bit more detail. A reasonable request to line it up and give them more detail on how we're pulling those numbers together. So it is, there's a lot of detail to go through and agree with on FEMA, but we are making progress with them.
Are you confident that FEMA, under the Trump administration, is still approaching this in good faith and is still committed to recovery in the state?
Yeah, I may be naive, but I believe they are working in good faith. Doug maybe can give us a little bit more on that, but everything we've seen thus far, they've followed through. We are receiving payments. And we've gotten the first, I think, of some of the homes that will be taken offline. So I think the buyouts are important. And again, the time is not something that is unusual for FEMA. We went through this with Irene, and as I've said before, it was 10 years, I think it was maybe longer. No, it was longer than that, because we had the last project that went through the pipeline maybe a year ago from Irene. So it just takes a while for any bureaucratic organization like FEMA, and that's been some of our concern, and we've actually sent some suggestions to FEMA, to the Homeland Security, about what they could do better, because they're pretty good in recovery or response, but not so good in recovery in the long term. So we have some suggestions, and hopefully they'll listen to governors about their experiences and what they could do better. Doug, anything you want to add?
Yes, Governor, I would add that FEMA regional leadership is meeting with myself and members from Vermont Emergency Management every week, and we're talking through complex projects, continuing to engage and move things forward. We recently received about $7 million of obligations for the the 2023 floods. So the pace is still less than ideal, but the staff are working with us on declared disasters, and they're continuing to support it. It's just, it is a long process, as we saw from Irene. And I think that was, Governor, that last project, I think, was closed about 3 months before the 2023 floods. We were celebrating closing Irene right before the 2023 floods hit.
Governor, 12 states are, this is a question about SNAP benefits. 12 states are cutting junk food out of their SNAP benefits. Should Vermont join them?
Jenny, would you like to?
That's news to us, so we can take a look at that and evaluate it, but it has not been on our radar screen.
Thank you.
As a sidebar, I mean, I think it would be important to take a look at that. We want to provide quality food and sustainable.
I think following up from earlier, again, that meeting businesses said they're down 30% in Burlington. It's been 2 years since you walked through the town, the city, the state's largest city. Would you be willing to walk with us to see the reality that these businesses?
I know that would be a great photo op for you, but I know what's going on in the city. I see it. I drive through there. I don't have to walk down Church Street to see and appreciate what's going on there. So again, if the mayor and council would like to, our assistance, we're all ears. I'd be happy to meet. I've met and in conversation with a lot of the businesses, obviously. So it's not as though we turn a blind eye to them, but they haven't asked for specific help other than maybe returning to the hotel motel program that I think was a failure.
So you talked about, maybe the National Guard would be a bit too much, right? Maybe any type of police presence like that might be a bit much. But I guess what I'm wondering, for Burlington, it doesn't seem like they want to make the policy changes. How do you solve the issue of law and order in Burlington and Vermont as a whole, really? It seems like we're hearing stuff every day about just catch and release and violent crime.
We've made some gains with the legislature in the last session. Not enough, but more than we have in the last few years. So that's the catch and release is something we hear a lot about. I will say, I mean, in terms of the former mayor, Mayor Weinberger, did ask for assistance, and we provided VSP for some shifts, and we did. We were there in uniform. So it's not as though we're opposed to more law enforcement. I was saying I'm not going to activate the Guard to go there unless it's a true emergency.
You haven't been getting any requests from the current administration for more VSC patrol?
I haven't, not that I'm aware of. Anything you've heard? No, not that we're aware.
Can I say something?
Sure, absolutely.
So I don't know how long you've been tracking the situation in Burlington, but none of this happened overnight. This is years and years and years of policy decisions, budgetary decisions, the city council decisions that have led to the situation in Burlington. And to come around on point and somehow point a finger at the governor belies the reality for the people who lived through that as city employees. So I'll leave that part of it there. My colleagues at AHS and at DPS and others across state government do engage with the City of Burlington, and we engage with them quite regularly. And we recently paid for, out of a federal grant, to bring a project to the City of Burlington called the Situation Table that brings together stakeholders to solve complex cases of people who are at acutely elevated risk of harm or overdosing or recidivism. And so we are bringing tools to that community, and we do talk to them on the regular. The problems in Burlington did not occur overnight. They will not be fixed overnight. And it requires that everybody commit to principles of accountability, shifting the pendulum back to the middle so that the use of public spaces is just as important for law-abiding people and businesses to thrive as it is for service-resistant people who make others afraid or commit crimes. We also need commitments to prosecute and detain people who continue to harm the community. So it frustrates me as somebody who spent 23 years policing that city and as the interim chief in 2020 to hear people somehow point the finger at a governor when I lived through the decisions that got us to where we are now. And it was not the fault of the police chief or the police chief after me, and it certainly was not the fault of this governor. The city has made their bed, and they are going to have to ask for specifics to help turn the corner. We are here to partner with the City of Burlington, just as we are in Brattleboro, Bennington, Springfield, Rutland, St. Johnsbury, Barry and Montpelier, and now in Woodstock and Hartford. So we are willing to engage in crime reduction strategies, but we can't be the ones directing the work. We don't come in and do something to a community. We work in partnership with communities who need state-level resources because they've exhausted the local resources. So that's how this works. And I really resent the implication, whether it's your implication or the mayor's, that somehow Governor Scott is responsible for anything that has happened in the Queen City.
And to be clear, I quoted the mayor.
Right, okay, just good. Well, then we're good. But it's I have to say, it's, if you haven't been here for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years and followed this, then of course you're going to be like, oh, this is terrifying. But that's not the whole story.
What's the status of the safe injection site there in Burlington? Any location picked for that yet? Do you know?
I'm not aware that any decisions have been made on the location.
Just one more follow-up on the federal funding stuff. As you know, there was a bunch of language in the big bill this year that would require certain action from Secretary Clark's office, from the JFC, from the E-Board, when we hit certain triggers of federal funding cuts. Has any of that happened yet?
Yeah.
Have there been any specific responses to specific
We're not seeing any immediate action that would necessitate coming back into session for anything. Anything you want to add, Sarah?
Only that in addition to that, Governor, that we have set up a process statewide to solicit on a monthly basis this information from our agencies and departments so that we can very closely track the changes in our federal funding. So if we do experience something that would trigger needing to convene either the Joint Fiscal Committee, Emergency Board, or the full General Assembly, we'll be prepared.
But just to be clear, there's been no funding cut that has triggered that language that was put into the big bill
Correct.
this year yet?
Correct.
Governor, with back to school coming up, multiple Vermont communities say that they're struggling to find bus drivers or have buses. With the education reform law, is there any thoughts on this issue and how the law hopes to maybe help transportation for Vermont students or anything like that?
Well, again, as we've seen, there are impacts throughout Vermont in every sector due to our labor crisis. And how we fix that is something that we've talked about for probably a decade, or I've talked about for over a decade. We need to make the state more affordable. We need more housing. We need to make it more attractive for people to come and stay here. So, you've heard this a million times, but grow the economy, make Vermont more affordable, protect the most vulnerable. The 3 pillars of our administration. Zoe, anything you want to add?
Thank you, Governor. I would just add that Act 73 does contemplate that as a benefit of the redistricting process, and the Agency of Education is tasked with providing recommendations around transportation and thinking about how we could gain some efficiencies operationally and also in the way of cost reduction in the future state. So more information around that, but we do anticipate that will be a benefit of the education transformation work, as it will be able to consolidate bus routes and really create more efficient operational structures.
Thank you, Secretary. So foliage season isn't too far away. Any plans to do something to encourage people from Quebec and Canada to come down to Vermont?
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about a strategy there, but as you might remember, when we met with many of the premiers of provinces in the Canadian region, they're offended and they're hurt. And I don't know what we're going to be able to do to fix that overnight. It's going to take some time. I think the tariff situation needs to be solved first. There has been a decline in the number of times the president has referred to the 51st state. I think that's been helpful, not to continue with that. And but we're going to have to work on that relationship. So it's interesting. We had a team go to up into Quebec this past week. I thought that was good. Maybe you could talk about something good. And Anson was there as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, as the governor mentioned, we, a team of us, Secretary Tebbets and I, went to Quaticook this week. We were invited to join a member of Parliament, Marianne Dandurand, who represents Eastern Townships. And we had dinner up there and visited a place called Foresta Lumina. If you haven't been there, it's fabulous, very memorable. And it was great because we talked about how our communities are very tied culturally through the economy and through tourism. And we, as I mentioned, these relationships are long-standing. We all still very much enjoy each other, as the governor mentioned. What hurts right now is their national pride. There's some anxiety, just fear that's been built up. But we are committed to reassuring folks that when people are ready to visit us, that we're here for them and we'll be welcoming, and that we do respect their sovereignty. So we're going to continue to do that. We have another conversations for another event where some additional delegation will come to Vermont in a few weeks and enjoy visiting some areas in northern Vermont. So as you know, all of the state relies on Canadian tourism. The northern part of the state is more heavily affected. So we'll probably get together in the northern part of the state, but we look forward to that. And again, we really appreciate those relationships. Anson, is there anything I missed that you want to share?
No, I would just add that, they're thirsty to get back together with Vermont, and we're thirsty to get back together with Canada. And we're going to do it one person at a time. We're going to do it 10 people at a time, and we're going to build those relationships. They still value us. We still value them. And there's a lot we can share in common, and it can help our economies, beginning with food, beginning with agritourism, beginning with just relationship building. But they value us and we value them, and we're just going to go at it and work at it. It's going to take time, it's going to take energy, but we're all committed to it, and that's part of these exchanges that we're having with our friends to the north.
One more thing to add, because we have a lot of Canadians who come down to visit our state parks, and we were down in numbers throughout this summer, down at one point around 20%, I believe. But we caught back up with the weather. It looks as though we might at least get to an even point with last year. So that's good news for us. But we look forward to them coming back and visiting us. So and we need to continue to visit them. I think it's important. It's to to remind everyone it's a two-way street.
What would you ask the president to do specifically to maybe mend the relationship?
You know, I can't tell him anything. I mean, he knows what to do. I mean, he's a master at it. So all he needs to do is focus on mending that relationship, and I think it could happen. All right, thank you all very much.